that is awesome. Hey there, history buffs and thrill seekers. Tonight, we're diving headfirst into a world darker than the dankest dungeon, smellier than the foulest barnyard, and dripping with more regret than a medieval stew gone horribly wrong. Welcome to the infamous Brothel, a place where romance goes to die a slow, grim death, and hygiene is just a cruel myth whispered by the clean. But before you get too cozy, do me a favor. Hit that like button and subscribe, only if you're ready to drift into the mildly disturbing, deeply factual corners of history. Oh, and drop a comment telling me where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. Now, dim the lights, snuggle into your blankets, and brace yourself. Have you ever wondered what life was really like inside a medieval brothel? Was it all velvet cushions and endless wine? Or more like drafty rooms, questionable soup, and customers who probably hadn't bathed in a decade? How on earth did the workers survive here? A place bursting with more drama than any soap opera, more rules than a monastery, and hygiene standards so low they make your college dorm look spotless. What did they eat? What did they wear? Did anyone ever actually get any sleep? Or was it just an endless medieval grind of all-night customer service with way more chances of getting arrested? Let's find out.
You've just woken up in the year 1352, smack dab in the middle of the medieval red light district. You're cold, confused, and nursing a hangover from ale that probably contained more fungus than hops. You stumble through a narrow, reeking alley that smells like last year's cabbage, only to be greeted by a flickering, barely there sign and a door that creaks louder than your aging knees. Inside, the air clings to you, thick with smoke, cheap perfume, and the nervous energy of people all claiming to be named Marjorie. Welcome to your new home for the night. Don't mind the rats, they're part of the ambiance.
Let's set the scene. You're freezing, exhausted, and have lost feeling in your feet somewhere around the third puddle you stepped in. Behind you, the alleyway hums with the sounds of medieval nightlife. The crash of a dropped tankard, the distant shouting of someone bargaining over onions, and the unmistakable splat of a chamber pot's contents making its daily escape into the street. If you think this is just a sketchy inn with a little extra character, think again. The medieval brothel is part boarding house, part tavern, part fever dream, and absolutely nothing like anything your high school history teacher ever mentioned. Crossing the threshold, you're immediately slammed by a wall of mixed aromas, stale beer, tallow candles, damp wool, and whatever someone desperately tried to mask with a handful of lavender. The perfume here isn't worn, it's weaponized, a thick veil over centuries of mysterious stains and eternal regrets. And if there's a draft, it's not from the windows, it's the collective sigh of everyone realizing there's no turning back now. Your eyes dart to the decor, which somehow lands somewhere between a forgotten attic and a creative fire hazard. The furniture is a chaotic mismatch, mostly inherited from customers who either skipped out on their tab or simply vanished in the dead of winter. A lopsided table holds a single candle that threatens to blow out with the slightest breeze. Three-legged stools are occupied by people with two working legs and even more questionable morals. A faded tapestry hangs on the wall, depicting either a biblical miracle or someone dropping a pie. It's impossible to say. You're greeted, if that's the right word, by someone in a bonnet whose main job seems to be glaring suspiciously at newcomers. They don't ask your name. No one here cares about names. But they do want to know if you're paying up front. You nod, trying your best to look like someone who knows how money works.
Coins are exchanged, counted, recounted, and then immediately pocketed. Receipts? Not a thing here. Your only proof of payment is the faint hope that the madam has a good memory. Speaking of, let's talk about the other guests. A traveling merchant snores face down on the bar, having lost both his money and his shoes. Two local farmhands sit whispering loudly enough for the entire room to hear, trying to muster the courage to talk to Marjorie. Though which Marjorie, well, that's anyone's guess. A minor noble in an ill-fitting doublet attempts and spectacularly fails to blend in. He's the only one whose boots haven't been chewed by rodents. You're shown to your accommodation, a small, drafty room separated from the next suite by nothing more than a threadbare curtain and the sheer willpower of everyone in the building. The mattress? A sack stuffed with straw, crunchy and uneven, dotted with stains you desperately hope are wine but suspect date back to the 100 Years' War. A candle barely taller than your thumb flickers on the floor, fighting to stay alive out of pity. But the real stars of this tragic comedy are your roommates. Two house cats of indeterminate color, one mouse braver than most nights, and an ancient, grumpy rooster who looks like he's here against his will. Every sound is amplified. The scraping of bowls, the clink of coins, the muffled argument about whether last week's bread is technically still edible. Through the thin wall, you catch bursts of laughter, sobbing, and the occasional medieval version of customer service gone terribly wrong. Just as you're settling in, the madam herself appears. She surveys you with the world-weary eyes of someone who's seen too many people try to pay in buttons. She offers a cup of wine, suspiciously thick and tasting like it might have been stranged through an old sock. You drink anyway, because it's either that or the well water, and trust me, no one recommends the well water. As night falls and the brothel truly comes alive, you realize your modern problems, losing Wi-Fi, running out of oat milk, are nothing compared to the terror of discovering you're not alone in your room. You pull your scratchy blanket over your head, listen to the distant sounds of medieval nightlife, and silently thank your ancestors for inventing walls, locks, and soap. And so begins your first night in the medieval brothel. Survive until morning, and you might just get breakfast, assuming the rooster doesn't wake you first. Welcome to history's worst Airbnb. Forget kings and queens. The brothel madam is the real ruler here. She runs the show with an iron ladle, a razor-sharp tongue, and an uncanny ability to sniff out unpaid tabs across 3 rooms. She sizes you up in seconds, deciding whether you're trouble, a customer, or worst of all, competition. Let's talk power. Kings might rule kingdoms, but the madam rules something far scarier. A building packed with desperate workers, demanding customers, and livestock that don't pay rent. She wields more authority than the local constable, more charisma than the traveling friar, and remembers every coin, every broken promise, and every sock left under a mattress since last Michaelmasses. You spot her right away, partly because she's the only person who isn't rushing anywhere. She floats through the chaos with the calm certainty of someone who's seen it all before and survived. Tonight, you're under her watchful eye, so buckle up. This isn't just history. It's a wild, gritty ride into one of the darkest corners of the medieval world. Ready? Let's go. Feel the weight of her presence. She moves through the brothel like a force of nature, untouchable, unshakable. Not a flicker of fear crosses her face. Fire, famine, even the dreaded citywide street cleaning day, none of it phases her. Her dress alone tells stories, an audacious patchwork quilt of velvet, wool, and sheer determination, stitched together across generations. It's a visual manifesto of survival and grit. Her hair, pulled up so tightly it might as well be a steel trap, defying even the most persistent lice to make a move. That raised eyebrow of hers, oh, that single perfectly arched brow, can hush a room faster than any sword could slash. And when she shouts, you better believe every worker, cleaner, and yes, every chicken in the building stops dead in their tracks and comes running. Forget swords or daggers. Her weapon of choice is something far more fearsome, a wooden spoon. But not just any spoon, the sharpest, most intimidating wooden spoon you've ever seen. Perfect for breaking up fights, poking suspicious stew to make sure it's safe, or delivering a knuckle rap to anyone slow to pay their dues. Her day starts before the sun has even thought about rising. And if you asked her when it ends, she'd laugh in your face. The madam never really clocks out. She keeps a ledger under lock and key, sure. But honestly, her mind is probably the most secure vault in the whole city. She juggles bookings, checks supplies, haggles prices, and keeps the peace with a diplomatic finesse that could make even the Pope raise an eyebrow in admiration. There was a story, whispered in alleyways and taverns, about a foolish soul who tried to shortchange her with a counterfeit coin. The madam? She chased him through 3 streets, reclaimed her money, collected interest, and somehow even walked away with a complimentary goose. And don't think she just runs a business. She's the keeper of every secret in the district. Want the latest gossip? She knows how it ends before the first whisper even reaches your ears. Need credit? Prepare for a laugh that'll cut sharper than any insult, followed by a consolation bowl of soup, because generosity has its limits. Her network of spies is the stuff of legends, mostly nosy neighbors and bored cats who report every visitor, every late payment, and every missing towel. There's even the city bailiff, whom she cheekily calls by his childhood nickname. When he shows up for surprise inspections, she doesn't flinch. Instead, she serves tea and casually reminds him about that one time he lost a boot in her cellar. She is part boss, part therapist, part medieval alarm system. Arguments over whose turn it is to use the good pillow? She mediates with the kind of tough love that only a lifetime in this business can teach. Heartbreaks? She soothes them with a mix of no-nonsense advice and day-old bread that somehow tastes like comfort. And liars? She can spot them from a mile away with a glance. New workers face her piercing gaze that silently says, "I've seen worse, but not by much." Try to outwit her, and you'll find yourself scrubbing the yard for a week, or worse, assigned to feed the geese, a task nobody envies. Every so often, a customer tries to sweet-talk their way into a discount or a free drink. But the madam's response is legendary. A story so mortifying, so tailored to embarrass, that even the most persistent cheapskate suddenly remembers he left the oven on at home. There's even a tale of a local lord who paid double the price just to avoid being named at dinner. Talk about power. Despite her ironclad exterior, there's an odd loyalty that binds everyone in the house. Workers might grumble about her strict rules, but when the city guard comes knocking or a brawl threatens to spill into the street, it's the madam they turn to. She's the only one who can fire up the oven, calm down an irate client, and scare off rats with a single clap of her hands. To outsiders, she might seem harsh, maybe even cruel. But to her people, she is the last line of defense against the chaos of the world outside. She hands out loans with interest, dishes out advice whether you want it or not, and offers the occasional hug, strictly after hours and never in public. Without her, the brothel would fall apart. The roof would cave in, the stew would burn, and everyone would be sleeping in the alley with the goats. So, if you ever find yourself inside a medieval brothel, remember this: be polite, pay promptly, and never underestimate the power of a woman armed with a ledger, a wooden spoon, and a grudge longer than the Magna Carta. Before you even get comfortable, you're handed a list of house rules longer than a church sermon. No fighting, no free samples, no credit, and for heaven's sake, no singing after midnight. Soap? Only rationed and barely used. Let's dive into these legendary rules, because surviving a medieval brothel isn't just about stamina, it's about strict obedience. First, the rules themselves are handwritten on a scrap of parchment, ink blotchy and suspiciously fresh in places, likely added after last night's infamous goose incident. Others are so ancient even the madam can't remember their origins. No juggling torches in the main room. Someone definitely learned that the hard way. Rule number 1. No fighting inside the house. This isn't some lawless tavern or a medieval brawl pit. If you must duel, do it outside, and preferably out of the town guard sight. Broken chairs cost money, and the madam isn't about to add furniture repairs to her already overflowing to-do list. Bruised egos? Handle them quietly behind the privy or with a silent exchange of passive-aggressive glares. Next up, no free samples. The brothel might be the medieval equivalent of customer service, but charity? That's off the table. Anyone caught giving away the goods for free is promptly consigned to laundry duty, boiling bed sheets in a cauldron big enough to drown all your hopes of a quick escape. Curiously, no one ever asks for seconds. Credit? Forget it. The madam means business. No, I'll pay tomorrow, or I left my purse at home excuses. Unless you're royalty, and even then, your night begins and ends with cash on the barrel. Any attempts to barter, swap, or trade your second-best chicken are met with a look so disappointed it could sour fresh milk. No singing after midnight? Absolutely. This rule was born from a legendary week when an ambitious apprentice bard serenaded the entire block with a song about 12 turnips. It was catchy for 5 minutes, then unbearable. The punishment for breaking this rule? Floor mopping, animal wrangling, and a temporary ban on soup. And then there's the soap, the most precious, hotly fought-over commodity in the house. Thou shalt not steal the soap. This isn't just practical, it's philosophical. The soap is a shrunken nub of mysterious origin, passed from guest to guest, carrying at least 5 distinct scents, none of them pleasant. Steal it, and you're the only one who smells like weak old lye instead of goat. Soap is so scarce, it's rationed like gold. Workers get a ceremonial hand wash before dinner, and a full bath only on alternate saints' days. For customers, bathing is a privilege, not a right. Sneak in an extra scrub and prepare for the madam's wrath, complete with a lengthy lecture on communal hygiene. Remember, the average medieval person bathes once a month, so this soap is practically a luxury. No livestock upstairs. Another rule etched in stone after a notorious incident involving a chicken, 2 goats, and a bucket of ale. Let's just say chaos ensued, and the madam was not amused. Say the lesson was learned, but those stains, oh, they never quite came out of the carpet, ever. And if your animal can't pay its own way, well, tough luck. It sleeps outside, under the cold, indifferent stars. Now, listen closely, because there are a handful of unspoken rules in this place. Rules you'd do well to learn fast. Don't ask too many questions about what's simmering in the stew pot. Some secrets are safer left uneaten. And whatever you do, never, ever comment on someone's real name, especially if they insist it's Marjorie. Trust me, it's better that way. And if the rooster struts his way inside, just let him be. That bird has tenure here, like some feathered lord of the manor, immune to complaints or eviction. These aren't just quirky traditions or random whims. No, these rules are the fragile glue holding this chaotic world together. Without them, oh, it would be utter anarchy every single night. Spilled ale flooding the floor, furniture shattered like kindling, and at least one small fire turning the whole place into a smoldering disaster. The madam, she knows this all too well. She runs the house with the grim, unyielding determination of a medieval schoolmaster nursing a brutal hangover. No nonsense allowed. Everyone, workers, guests, even the goats, fall into line. If not, they quickly find themselves regretting it.
So, as you settle in, clutching your precious sliver of soap like it's a treasure, practicing your best silent hum to drown out the chaos, remember this. In a medieval brothel, obedience isn't just a game or a courtesy, it's survival. And nothing, absolutely nothing, ruins a night faster than the madame catching you trying to swipe the soap. Believe me, you don't want to be that person.
Think you've got the medieval brothel all figured out? Silk, mystery, glamour? Think again. Most of the workers are draped not in finery, but in threadbare linen, patched wool, and hand-me-down tunics that have seen more action than a knight's shield at Agincourt. Accessories? Decorative fleas and a faint, ever-present air of regret. Let's toss out every romantic notion you've picked up from scandalous paintings or glossy TV dramas. The reality is much grittier. Luxury? Mostly an illusion. Velvet curtains? Those are sheep's wool dyed a heroic shade of burgundy, nothing more than a clever trick of the eye. The real dress code? What's warm, what's still holding together, and what hasn't been completely worn through. If you're imagining sultry robes and feathered masks, adjust your mental image to a layered potato sack with bonus holes. Linen is the fabric of choice. Well, what used to be linen before centuries of hard labor, frantic mending, and enthusiastic laundering turned it into something best described as historically durable. The standard undertunic is a washed-out beige, but sometimes it's more of a mystery color, thanks to the ever-shifting patterns of stains that even the most hopeful washerwoman has thrown in the towel on. And that so-called lacy trim? It's just where the fabric frayed, giving birth to what we might call medieval distressed chic. Over this, the woolen overdress waits. Hand-patched and repatched so many times it resembles a map of disappointment. Sometimes, a faded apron adds a dash of functional flair. If you're lucky, you might snag a borrowed shawl, scratchy but effective at hiding sleeves of mismatched lengths. Clothes get swapped more often than stories here, so every garment carries a history, probably more secrets than the city bailiff's ledger. Shoes? Let's just say they're an exercise in compromise. The house issues a handful of battered pairs passed around like communal bread. Some have holes, some have mismatched laces. all carry a faint, persistent dampness that defies description. Many simply go barefoot, a truly medieval choice, until the moment you step on something sharp and instantly regret centuries of technological progress. And then there are the true stars of this ragtag dress code, lice. Not just a hazard, but practically part of the uniform. Bathing, a quarterly event. Combs, precious status symbols. In this environment, fleas and lice thrive in every hem, collar, and far less pleasant crevice. Scratching has become the house's unofficial rhythm, a constant backdrop alongside the clink of coins and the occasional distant thud of someone tumbling down the stairs. Jewelry is minimal and utterly practical. Maybe a scrap of ribbon, a bit of colored glass strung on a thread, or a lucky pin kept for protection, or stealthy prodding of overly eager customers. Real gold? Only if someone left it behind in a hurry, and in that case, the madam claims it immediately for the Communal Improvement Fund, a fund that mysteriously never improves anything except her suspiciously impressive collection of hats. Hairstyles? Simple, utilitarian. Hair pulled back in a knot, hidden beneath a cap, or tightly plaited to keep out of the communal stew pot. Lice treatments are homemade concoctions ranging from vinegar rinses to hopeful prayers. The house keeps a communal brush, but rumor says it's cursed. A cursed brush in a brothel? What could possibly go wrong? And that intangible accessory, the ever-present air of regret, hovers over every outfit. Wearing the same tunic you've seen on 5 different co-workers and 3 customers humbles even the proudest soul. If you find yourself longing for a velvet corset, remember, velvet in medieval times was so expensive it could get you robbed, arrested, or both. Here, patchwork is protection. Want to truly stand out? Clean socks, the rarest luxury of all. Own a pair and guard them with your life. They'll be borrowed, bartered, and possibly stolen before the week's out. In a world with no fabric softeners or scented dryer sheets, the simple joy of warm, dry socks is as close to heaven as a brothel worker ever gets. So next time you grumble about laundry day, spare a thought for this dress code. Less lace, more lice, and a fashion sense best described as apocalypse chic. To survive the night, wear whatever you can, patch it with pride, and remember, the only thing more persistent than the stains here are the stories. The stories. Meet the customers, merchants, soldiers, tired travelers, and a suspiciously high number of clergy who swear they're only here to save souls. Each visitor brings their own unique scent, their own haggling style, and a medieval misunderstanding of personal boundaries that would make modern etiquette books weep. Let's take a slow, slightly horrified stroll through tonight's motley lineup, because the clientele of a medieval brothel are nothing if not unforgettable. First up, the merchants. They swagger in with jangling purses and fingernails just a notch cleaner than the average latrine. Always just passing through on extremely important business. Yet somehow they know every local drink special by heart. Their favorite pastime? Haggling over the price of a room for a solid 20 minutes, only to tip with a foreign coin no one can actually spend. Oh, and they love to talk about themselves, about their wares, about the one time they almost did business with a duke, who tragically died of natural causes. Translation? Plague, or bad soup. Then there are the soldiers, gruff, loud, covered in so much mud you could plant turnips on their boots. They travel in packs and think they're incredibly charming. After weeks on the road, the phrase smelling like victory takes on a painfully literal, nose-watering meaning. Their table manners are creative, to say the least. And their idea of romance? Arguing over who gets the least lumpy corner of the straw mattress. But if you want the latest gossip on battles or tales of the latest town burned to the ground, these are your go-to sources. Just don't expect them to remember your name, or their own, come morning.
Next up, the travelers.
Regulars shuffle through the door, their eyes hollowed by years of hardship, dragging behind them nothing but a walking stick worn smooth by countless miles, a sack bursting with old regrets, and a blanket so rough it might as well be dried fish skin. These souls are grateful for the simplest of mercies, a roof over their heads, a hot bowl of pottage to chase away the gnawing hunger, and a night free from the assault of weather, or worse, the unexpected shower from an upstairs chamber pot. And the travelers? They're a tired breed, too weary to fuss over whether the stew has a suspicious extra crunch or if the mattress feels more like a bed of nails. They'll sleep through anything, even the raucous medieval karaoke night that somehow always erupts at the tavern next door. Then, of course, there are the clergy. Oh, so many clergy. Officially, their visits are meant to tend to the spiritual well-being of the house, but everyone knows there's a more practical reason behind those long robes and solemn faces. Sin, repentance, and generosity are the buzzwords of their sermons, but if you listen closely, you'll catch the subtle exchange of coin purses slipping under pillows, just as the talk turns heavy with morality. Some clergy are regulars, dropping pearls of wisdom, or sometimes actual pearls if they're particularly well connected, before disappearing at dawn with a vow of silence and an unfortunate rash. Others insist they're just here for the soup, but no one buys that excuse. Yet the parade of regret doesn't stop with the clergy. Every now and then, a nobleman will sneak in wearing the disguise of a commoner, convinced that no one will recognize him beneath his very humble hat, which is actually a velvet cap adorned with a feather so large it casts a shadow over the candlelight. He'll offer payment in promises, poetry, or invitations to feasts that almost certainly don't exist. If caught, he'll claim to be a simple shepherd searching for lost sheep, and everyone, eye-rolling but entertained, lets him keep up the charade. And then there are the chronically broke locals. The same familiar faces week after week, each with a new tale explaining why tonight's bill remains unpaid, but will definitely be settled next time. One lost his purse to a pickpocket, another mourns a dearly beloved pig, and yet another swears the moon is in retrograde, making it bad luck to pay for anything on a Tuesday. The madam keeps a special list for these cases, and the usual penalty is a term of chores or scrubbing up after the goat. Medieval code for never actually paying off the debt. Don't forget the occasional tourists, lost students, runaway apprentices, or wandering minstrels. These dreamers arrive with empty purses, stories from distant lands, and usually a fresh batch of lice. They're fleeing something, a failed love affair, a bad grade in Latin, or the local constable's wrath. Each one adds a new rumor, a fresh stain, a new twist to the ongoing saga of last night's escapades. Personal boundaries? Huh, those are a luxury no one here can afford. What starts as a polite handshake might quickly turn into a bear hug, or someone accidentally stumbling into the wrong bed and deciding that fate has made its choice. By morning, the parade of regret shuffles back into the dawn, carrying their secrets, their questionable change, and the faint yet unmistakable scent of tallow candles. If you're lucky, all you'll catch is a new story to share. If not, well, that's why the house keeps a well-stocked supply of vinegar on hand. Now, if you were hoping for a luxurious soak in a scented candlelit bath, it's time to lower those expectations. The communal bath here is a leaky barrel set out in the yard, filled with water that smells distinctly of sheep. Most guests simply drown their worries in ale and pray the lice don't take notice. Let's shatter your modern sensibilities. Personal hygiene in a medieval brothel is not just low on the priority list, it's buried deep in the basement of that list. The idea of a relaxing bubble bath after a long night's work might as well belong in the realm of dragons and magic spells.
Instead, the nightly cleaning routine is more of a test of endurance than a spa experience. The infamous bath barrel, once a wine cask, now serves as both bath and science experiment. If you're first in line, the water might be lukewarm. By the time the third bather climbs in, it's less a bath and more a swap meet of skin cells and secrets. On busy nights, the barrel becomes a revolving door of feet, elbows, and stray hairs that may or may not belong to current employees. Changing the water between baths? That would require effort and a reliable water source. Luxuries the house simply cannot afford.
Soap is a precious commodity, guarded fiercely like gold. It's a grayish lump that smells like wet sheep mixed with overcooked onions, doled out in tiny slivers. Anyone caught sneaking an extra scrub will quickly earn the madam's wrath, which is far scarier than any midnight singer. Most people settle for a quick rinse of hands and face. A full body wash is a rare treat, reserved for high holidays, epidemics, or visits from very important clients. In those moments, a heroic amount of perfume is slathered on to mask what the water cannot cleanse. The rest of the time, everyone does what medieval folk do best. They embrace the smell and hope for the best. After all, in a world where everyone is ripe, no one's nose is clean. The signature scent of the brothel is a potent blend of sweat, tallow, ale, and whatever herb someone tossed on the fire last week. Lavender if you're lucky, cabbage if you're not. Guests are even worse. Travelers bring with them the aroma of every horse they've ever ridden. Soldiers think dipping their feet in a trough counts as a bath. Merchants try to cover everything with strong cologne, which only makes the whole situation more complicated. And the worst offenders? Those who claim to be naturally clean, the medieval equivalent of bragging about being able to eat anything without getting sick. Lice, fleas, and their extended families are so common they might as well be part of the staff. Combs? They exist, but only as toothless relics someone once found and declared decorative. Flea picking is a communal affair, usually accompanied by gossip about who skipped their bill last week. Workers have their favorite seats where the breeze blows strongest, not to cool down, but to try and blow away a few persistent stowaways.
Feeling fancy? There's always the local bathhouse. If you dare risk the gossip, scandal, and the very real chance of bumping into half the town, including that one priest who asks far too many questions. Bathhouses are expensive, sometimes even banned, and always suspicious. No one wants to explain to the bishop that they were just there for the steam.
To patch up the gaps in cleanliness, the house employs a system of strategic laundering. Bedding gets changed. Shirts and undergarments might get rinsed when their stench becomes stronger than the communal cheese. But mostly, everything is masked with fresh rushes scattered across the floor and a prayer to Saint Anthony, the patron saint of lost causes and, fittingly,
lost soap.
So as the night wraps up and the last candle flickers low, the brothel stands as it always has, a place of refuge, regret, and relentless humanity, where every stain tells a story and every visitor carries a secret. What's next in this tale? Stick around, because the story is far from over.